Welcome to Exploring This Life, Season 1, Episode 15. In today's episode, we travel to Butters Cyanide Mill in 6 Mile Canyon, and we interview a special guest and my friend Joe Curtis.
Subarus are for. So we can back up here.
Okay, now you can tell me what interesting thing you found. Oh, is that the assay pots?
It's pot. Yeah, it's part of a assay pot, or yeah, it's a crucible.
Very
Here's
cool.
the base of it. It sits like this. These other parts, I just picked them up off it.
Oh, just right in the middle of the road?
Yeah.
Is this one?
Yeah, that's more of it. It's
Green.
probably been there for forever.
Very cool.
You know, so we just leave them laid for somebody else to find. See, you find stuff like this. This is part from an old barrel.
Okay.
This is what goes around a barrel. So you find little bits and pieces of different things, and if you don't
look at the
recognize
bricks.
what it is, that's brick from maybe an oven of some sort, or a wall of a structure. I should have brought the picture to look at. Because there was other structures. There was the main thing was here, and scoped down over to the road, and then there were a couple of smaller houses and so forth that were in this area.
And I left them in the front seat of my car.
And I left mine in the desk at home.
Okay. Hi, Joe.
Hi.
I'm here with my friend Joe, and he is the local historian for Virginia City, the Comstock Lode, and the surrounding areas. And where are we?
We're at the site of the old Butters Mill. The Butters Mill was one of the major areas of milling operations in the late 1800s. 1901, 1902 is when it was built. And then the mill operated until early 1920s, and then it laid dormant until it was pretty much abandoned in 1930. But it was the largest cyanide, and it was one of the original cyanide mills, and so it was the largest cyanide mill operation in the world at the time it was built.
In the world?
Mm-hmm. It processed ore from Virginia City as well as ore from the Tonopah area.
How would they get all the ore from Tonopah to here?
Backpacks. It was tough. No.
Is that what they use the camels for?
Yeah.
The camels and the donkeys?
No, you may be familiar with the Carson, Colorado Railroad.
Yeah.
Which tied into the Virginia and Truckee Railroad at Mound House.
Okay.
And it ran from there to Dayton, and that station that burned down the other day.
That made me so sad.
Yeah, it's bad.
Heartbroken.
That station, it was one of the stations on Carson, Colorado. From there, it went and then it went down through Yerington, and then down past Hawthorne, and all the way to Tonopah, and then from over past Tonopah all the way down into Keeler, California.
Oh, wow.
And ended in Keeler, California. So it picked up ore from all the mining operations in Tonopah and brought it up here. It was a narrow gauge railroad, and it brought it up here, and then the cars then were taken by V&T and brought up to Virginia City, and then those cars were emptied, and there was a tramway, an aerial tramway that went from Virginia City down the canyon here.
Okay, I did not know that at all. That aerial tramway, that's cool.
Yeah, I have some pictures of that. That aerial tramway came down and brought the ore here. So by 1902 and 1903, Virginia City wasn't producing much of anything. A little bits here and there, but nothing significant at that point. And so that was why they started bringing the ore up here from Tonopah.
Why did they build here in the first place then?
Because they built here with the idea in mind that they were going to be processing primarily gold, Virginia City gold and air.
And they thought Virginia City pick up.
Yeah, but Virginia City produced ores into the 20s.
Okay.
For instance, Of course, it was milled in American Flat, but the Comstock merger mill operation was, it's all documented in that book that I gave you earlier. The Comstock merger mill produced ore that they got from underground that actually came up and connected in with the Savage mine in Virginia City. And then they mined underground and then took it back, and it was processed in American American Flat. And remember,
okay, that is cool.
There is no S on the end of American Flat.
I know, and I keep saying American Flats.
There's only one flat.
Right.
and so it came up here, and it was a rather extensive tramway that brought the ore down here. And by then, 1887, we had electricity in Virginia City,
which is phenomenal.
Yeah,
that blows my mind.
Yeah, and Virginia City had the second, only to San Francisco, telephone exchange system.
Really?
Yeah. First one was on the West Coast was San Francisco. The second one was Virginia City, and that was in the late, or right about that same period of time, late 1880s.
Well, they had to be communicating a lot because of the Bank of San Francisco. Wasn't the Bank of San Francisco?
Nevada Bank of San Francisco, right? Which is today what?
I don't know.
Bank of America.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, as it morphed along the way and sold out and so forth.
I did not know that.
Bank
and
of
it's
America.
everywhere now.
Yeah. So the ores that were produced here, or that were refined here and so forth, ended up all over the place. There's so many little stories and innuendos that relate to all the stuff that happened here. It's an unending story, basically.
Well, yeah, because we could talk about it for hours.
You absolutely, and I'm willing to.
I'm willing to listen.
People will say, "Don't get him started."
Hold on, I'm going to stop this and start it again. When I was interviewing Joe, this is where we were standing, and I know the video was washed out, and that's completely my fault. It was the first time I used the M50 with the filter, and I must have moved the filter when I was zooming in and out. So that is why the video interview with Joe was really, really overexposed. So I'm going to go around and take some video to supplement so that the parts that he was talking about, you'll be able to see better. It's just important that we got his audio recorded, so I'm not too worried about the video part. And yep, that's the plan.
You want to talk about that area first as opposed to... Okay.
Since I got my phone.
Oh, I see. So you can tie it in and...
Yes.
Okay.
So I've got to do it manually because this is not working well.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
All right. So so as we're looking to the southwest here, down across 6 Mile Canyon, this whole area is called the Flowery Range of mountains. And kind of as we look due south, more or less, we're looking up Flowery Ravine, where you're kind of looking at now. As you look up along the ridge line above the area we're looking at, right at the very top up here, it looks like a black spot between two trees, and then there's a tree right at the top of it, a little lone tree there.
I see him.
That's a rock quarry. And most of the rock that came out of there was used for the foundations of or a good many of the buildings in Virginia City.
That's amazing.
And you get to that by going up the Birdsall Grade, which is at the bottom of Washington Street in Virginia City, and it comes up. That's also partially, part of the road goes from there, and there's a trail that comes by there and then goes over the top of that hill and then drops down. But that's also connects into what's called Sutro Canyon.
Okay.
And if you look over there, you see the little peak right there?
Yeah.
That's Emma Peak.
Oh, okay.
And excuse me, that's Kate Peak.
Okay.
Kate was one of Adolf Sutro's daughters. There's another one, you can't see it quite from here, it's called Emma Peak, and that was his other daughter.
Okay.
Adolf Sutro. But if on where the two mountains come together there in that valley, there's the Sutro Canyon, which drops over and drops down into the Dayton Valley and comes out at Sutro Tunnel entrance.
Which I've never seen before.
Ah, okay. That's a private area.
I know.
So all of this area, this is and where we're standing here on the side of Sugarloaf, what is commonly referred to as Sugarloaf, is this is all volcanic area, and this is a volcanic plug. The Sugarloaf is.
And I did not know that until you told me earlier.
Yeah.
That's, you know, could you explain it a little more again about how the volcanic activity, and then once it cools and the rain strips it away and you're left with...
You just did it.
No, you tell it better.
Well, when this was all volcanic area, and this is still, particularly when you get down on the other side towards Steamboat, that's still...
I've never been to Steamboat.
Well, you've been to the bottom of Geiger Grade.
Yes.
That's Steamboat.
Oh, okay.
All right. That, and you look across and you see the steam coming out of the side of the hill.
Yes.
That's all still live volcanic area.
Okay.
So this whole area was all volcanic. So when the volcano ceases or dies, there's all this molten rock that has built up in the center of it, or in this particular case anyway. Right. And so it is a volcanic cone that, as the hundreds and thousands and millions of years pass, the rain and snow or whatever melts away the dirt and moves it out and so forth, and you get this big rock outcropping. And you'll find these types of things all over the world, and a great many of them are referred to as Sugarloaf. Why do you suppose that is?
That I researched it a long time ago, and I honestly cannot remember.
Well, okay.
Go ahead. Share your wisdom.
Sugar used to be sold in little loaves that had that appearance, like that it was a conical shaped loaf.
How would they make it?
It was stuck together. It had moisture in it, and it was stuck together, but it was sugar.
Right.
Right. And you would
just
buy
chip it off?
Or, yeah. Yeah. You'd scrape it off.
Scrape
it. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
So was it like dripped out, the sugar?
How they actually form? I think they probably just poured
it
into a form, probably.
Okay.
And then they tipped it over, and the sugar would be on a plate like that.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So you see, and I guess that was a pretty common thing to do. So you'd see this mountains that shaped like that.
Which I've seen across the U.S. in different places, but never heard it called the Sugarloaf. Well, maybe because I didn't live in those areas until I moved here.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing them like on our trips to California and things like that.
Yeah.
There's another one like past Tahoe or something on one of the roads.
Yeah, and I think probably the most famous one is in Rio de Janeiro.
Okay.
There's a big mountain there that's called Sugarloaf.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah, you'll find them around from place to place.
I love it.
So this is kind of about this is the upper end of 6 Mile Canyon, and along the canyon, as we go all the way to the bottom, there were a bunch of different mining or milling operations, not particularly mines, all milling. And the reason it was milling is because there was water that came down the canyon, and they could use the water for different operations.
And so, like, not in the winter when it was summertime like this, the water would still be brought in from the Lake Marlette area too by flume?
Well, as of 1873, water was brought into Virginia City from the Marlette Lake and Hobart Reservoir system was brought initially by fluming that came down from the Marlette area down into the Washoe Valley, and then later by pipe that was iron pipe that was riveted together, was made in San Francisco and brought here, and then the pipe came down. The pipe dropped into Washoe Valley and then came back up the other side of the Virginia range of behind Mount Davidson there, and the pressure from at 7,000 feet where it drops into the pipe down to the bottom of 4,000 feet, that 3,000 foot of pressure in a pipe pushed it back up the other side.
Okay, I always wondered that.
To the 6,000 foot level.
That's amazing.
So I remember as a kid there was the pipe being old and faulty, that pressure was sometimes so strong it would break some of the pipe, or it would pop the rivets. The other problem was the fact that anytime there's a turn in any kind of a hydraulic system, the pressure against that thing will wear the pipe or wear the material down, and that's where you'll find breaks in any kind of hydraulic system. And so it would break, and it would shoot sometimes so high in the air. We used to get calls from people saying that there was a fire because it looked like smoke.
I can imagine
yeah.
that.
And so then now, the most recently though, that whole pipeline has been replaced by modern plastic PVC oriented piping.
Is it still in the same location?
Essentially, yeah, within a few feet.
That's
in the same place.
I could walk the line essentially.
You can because there's a piece of plastic sticking up. It says water line.
Oh.
But you can't see the water line.
Because it's
buried.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are any of the old remnants of that flume there? Or not the flume, but
not
the
much.
pipeline?
Once in a while you can find pieces of wood that are from the flume line. More often than not, you'll see remnants of some of the iron piping.
Okay.
Along. And if you know where Ophir Grade is?
That goes behind the by the water tanks,
yeah, by the water treatment plant.
Yeah, because that's how we got to Mount Davidson last time. Was we drove a truck around the back and hiked up the back way.
Oh, that's cheating.
It was. Totally cheating.
You need to start at the.
I've done that and got to the first set of towers, like climbed, and then was like, I'm not walking all the way around to the flagpole. I totally cheated then and gave up.
It's a hard climb. Definitely a hard climb.
And it was hot the day I just did it. A couple weekends ago.
Oh yeah.
Really hot.
Yeah.
So.
It's quite a climb though.
So maybe you could explain a little bit how a mill would function and why all the mills tended to go like layered down a hill.
Okay, sure. What happens is, remember, as I mentioned, the ore, most of the ore for this mill, because it was built for that purpose to take care of the ore from southern Nevada, Tonopah, and that area. So it came from up in Virginia City on the tram, the overhead tram, and it came here, and it came up part of the hill, and then it was on a what would you call it, a tramway that was, or like a sort of like an escalator sort of thing, that brought it up to the top of the mill. So the mill functions in a series of down steps so that everything can flow down. And then it's processed using, in this particular case, using cyanide, which is not the kind of cyanide, it'll kill you, but it's not the kind of cyanide you think of that they kill people with. And so it's a process of it going into one cleaning and crushing process, and that this area where we're standing, I'm thinking, looking at it, is probably part of the crushing process. Looking at these formations here that are the foundational materials, it looks like for the milling operation. And then it would go down further, and it starts going into a slurries, and it tumbles around, and it gets smaller and finer and so forth, and then they use other chemicals to take the cyanide out, and then it separates the gold ores from the dirt and rock and whatever.
Could they reuse that cyanide, or did that batch of cyanide have to be like thrown out and then they start again?
It had to be renewed. Yeah, in different status. But see, that's why you get at the top. It starts from the top and it comes down these series of steps and then continues on further steps over. And then in this particular case, if you look at the pictures that you have of it, you'll see where it gets to about right here, and it turns. So it turns and kind of goes down the hill there, and down below us here is a creek, or 6 Mile Canyon Creek, which was fed in the day by springs up above in Virginia City primarily. And
is it kind of in the same location, the spring, or has it moved as the mills kind of built and then left? Did that structure change?
A little bit. A little bit. You see, over the years, I've seen that even in my time here. And then, but you also, the spring runoff bring quite a bit of water down, from the snow. This year, we didn't have a lot of spring runoff.
No.
And
we had no winter.
Yeah, last couple of years before that, we had some pretty good runoff and so forth. But there's still a couple of springs that sprout up right in Virginia City from time to time. There has been for the last couple of years one right in the middle of town that springs up.
Really? Okay, I've not noticed it when that happens.
There's one right there by Mill Street.
Okay.
As you come down, you look at the side and you see water running down.
That one I've seen.
Yeah.
And that's the one. Okay, that's the one I thought was somebody's like
that one-
water break.
Oh yeah.
Like somebody's sprinklers were
Right.
working
No, that's
overtime.
actually a spring.
Okay.
And that one has moved a couple of times. That one was about another block further west up the hill.
Now, is that running through old tunnels then?
Cracks in the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not
through a
moving
tunnel.
through any tunnels at all?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
no, because it's too above ground.
Okay,
But
too high up.
but you know, over the years, most of these mines have caved in on themselves way down. Upper levels are, some parts are open, but you can't go into them.
Right.
And would never recommend it because air is bad.
Right.
In fact, I have to meet with the Bureau of Abandoned Mines in the end of August, I think it is, end of July, maybe 1st of August. They're doing a video on abandoned mines in
that's
the area.
neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to watch that.
So,
Tell me when you're done with that one.
yeah, they just called me the other day on that. So it's a process, but like I say, this was the largest cyanide process in the world at the time.
Which is amazing.
Roughly 1902 to 1920.
And was it only owned by that Charles Butters then? Or
Charles Butters was the owner of the milling operation, right.
And then when he left, it was just abandoned and kind of stayed
pretty much.
abandoned.
Well, at that time, you know, everything had pretty much run out on the Comstock, and what there was being processed in mills down on the Carson River, and this was primarily supported by the ore coming up from the Tonopah area on the Carson, Colorado Railroad.
Which fascinates me.
Yeah, so they would bring it all the way up here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you would think the cost of doing that would maybe outweigh the production, but obviously not.
Well, there was no other options.
So there weren't mills in Tonopah that were,
No,
the water supply, I guess. in
Well,
Tonopah.
I don't know about water supply for sure, but there really weren't any significant mills to be able to do that with at that time. And they had the train to be able to bring it here. So
would that train run from Dayton up the Gold Canyon or kind of the same?
No, right along Highway 50 essentially, right to the Mound House area. So you know about where the brothels are?
Yeah.
It would be on the north side of the highway.
Okay.
That's called Mound House, right? So there was a station there, and there was that's where it connected up with the Virginia and Truckee.
Okay.
Unfortunately, though, they were two different railroad scales. Virginia and Truckee was standard scale.
Okay.
And I forget what is 2 foot 8 inches, I think, or something like that. And the narrow gauge is quite a bit smaller.
How did they? Like you said, they put them on the VNT cars then?
Right, they just switch the cars, yeah. They would reload the stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they have cranes? I don't know. Did they have cranes to lift the cars?
They did.
Like
They had,
how did they switch?
I'm not exactly certain, but they had some pretty ingenious engineering methods for doing things. Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. It blows my mind what they can do.
So when you look up behind us here, you know, there was a series of buildings that stepped down. And you'll be able to see that in your photographs. But you can see these foundational materials that were pretty strong. And this was it would have been the main milling area. And if you look behind you, you see some other walls down there. How this whole thing stepped down into and it was made for that purpose because that was the way it was processed in steps down, getting finer and finer.
Were the cyanide holding tanks, were they made out of metal then? No,
they're made out of wood usually.
Made out of wood?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and I think, I know of ones that were in American Flat were redwood. You know?
Really?
Yeah. And then there were a series of other smaller buildings out here to the west side of the mill itself that were office spaces, assay offices, this sort of thing. Other activities that were going in association with the mill.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll see those in your photographs.
Yeah, I'm kicking myself for leaving them in the truck.
Yeah, because you were talking about how you were going to hold them up.
I know. And
but just put them on a table and photograph them.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. And you got the ones
you emailed me. I'm going to put on cardstock at the house. I have cardstock, and then I'll bring those when Quarry comes out. And what we'll do is we'll tie in how you've been saying this area behind me, and then I'll take video and then kind of link it together so that we can have the parts that you were talking about and then show the pictures.
Because there's a couple of different views within those pictures. There's a western view and almost a central view and an eastern view.
Over there somewhere.
Yeah,
and is that private property over there, or can I walk over there?
People walk back up in there all the time, but it actually has a gate on it, and somebody owns that property back up in there. And they were gonna, years and years ago, they were gonna build a house, but it never occurred. Never happened.
Didn't happen.
But you get up there where the quarry is, and you get a great view down looking down here.
Yeah, that's why one of the reasons I want to hike up there tomorrow. Is to be able to overlook this area. But I didn't know that the quarry was there when I was planning that. I just asked my friend. I said, let's do the trails behind the combinations because I've not been back there, and to kind of get this view. Yeah,
you just stick to the road.
Yeah,
and you'll see the brown BLM, like they're like road markers, and they'll have a number on them.
Okay.
I think it's number 1 through 13.
I'm doing it.
And what it does is it comes around and goes in front of the quarry there, and then it goes around the corner of that and goes up on top and then drops back down to the west.
No, I'm excited about that. I like how all of my little bits of knowledge are getting tied together.
They get tied together, yeah.
I think that's very cool. Alrighty, you're good to go.
Where we're standing is a top of a foundational wall that had some structure on it. It would have been part of the milling process. And to our left is some frames, foundational material that were likely part of the rock crushing operation for milling the ore and so forth. So you'll see those various foundational walls. It was all part of this step down process that came out, and then further down here you can see remnants of part of the buildings that are more brick oriented. Even over here there's some pieces of old tin that would have been roofing material more than likely. There's another piece over there I see, and people like to get that old tin stuff and put on the sides of sheds and stuff, and and this is all Bureau of Land Management property.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Well, I take that back. Over there this is actually owned by the Butters Mill site is actually owned by a guy that I know who owns a business down south of Bridgeport. That he bought this whole area. As far as I know, he still owns it.
Did he have plans with us, or just kind of to keep it and restore it, or just not restore it, but keep it so it doesn't deteriorate anymore?
I'm not quite sure why he bought it. I never really asked him that, but I think he got a good deal on it and thought, well, it might be of some value to me at some point in time. So I don't know. You know, I could see you building a house here.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
I'd leave all the ruins.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, squeeze in.
Absolutely. You know, you'll see some great foundational area that you've got pointed there. That from the upper end, it goes halfway up the hill, and you'll see those foundations up there. And you can, if you follow this up behind there, about 3 years ago, all those trees burned back up there. But if you go around the backside of the plug, you can hand your fist over fist and get up to the top.
Well, I'm planning on it.
And when we did it the last time we did it was February of 2016.
Okay.
And there was still snow on the ground, and there was footprints from mountain lions.
Oh, wow.
That were in the snow.
I've not ever seen a mountain lion here. Which?
Yeah, there's a number of them that have been taken from here in the area.
Okay.
From licensed hunting and so forth. It's not unusual to see them up on the backside of Mount Davidson.
Okay.
Up in that area, because there's a lot of deer up in there, a lot of prey.
I do see a lot of deer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely want to hike.
But I'm
back up there.
Terribly disturbed by the people that put graffiti on these old sites and stuff. In fact, as we look in here, I see a name.
Yep, Carol.
Carol, somebody. Carol. I'm tempted to go up there and see what the last name is, and track them down.
No, and it's upsetting that it happens, but it's even more upsetting when they can't spell properly too.
Yeah, that's true.
But hopefully she spelled her own name right.
Or they're really bad artists.
Yes, the artistry is sad.
So this is, most people that drive by here know that this is the old Butters Mill, but know nothing about it.
Right.
They have no appreciation for it.
Which is a shame, because the history that was here in those 20 years, I mean, I think of the people who worked here, and
Yep.
I mean,
just
and
think
if
how hard it was, how hard the life
shipped
was.
all over, and like, yeah,
Life was
because
hard.
It definitely wasn't easy.
No.
I mean, it's hard to garden in Nevada. I can't imagine digging a mine and doing all of that, because gardening is atrocious.
Exactly. With a pick and a shovel
Yep.
at 110 degrees.
And then going down in the mines when they're that hot, they can only spend 15 minutes at a time and come back up. Like, that's incredible.
Or they would go into what were called cold rooms that they would actually fill with ice, and you'd go in. Consequently, a lot of people died of pneumonia.
Oh.
And so if you go into and look around and analyze some of the tombstones or the headstones in the cemetery, you see a lot of pneumonia or lung disease, that kinds of things.
And that was from going from the hot to the
hot to the cold
the
and
cold.
so forth. Yeah,
now
working
in the summer, how did they keep ice? Like, I don't know, do you mine ice? Did they mine ice in the winter?
Absolutely.
And then, like, store it? How did they store it?
They actually have, and the ice house is still in Virginia City. There is an ice house.
Really?
Yeah, and at in the wintertime there's a reservoir. It's not a real large one, but it's called the Divide Reservoir. It's up on the Divide area. And I have pictures of these guys doing this, but it froze. It was in the wintertime, and it'd freeze 3 feet deep. So then they had people that actually cut the ice, and they had big saws that they would sink down, and they would actually saw the ice. And then the ice was stored in the ice house, which, because they got to keep the mines from caving in, right? So they have to have timbers to keep the mines. So when they cut the timbers, what do they have? Sawdust.
Yeah. Oh.
So the sawdust is used to put all over the ice.
Yep.
And so the ice then was used for any number of things, for residential purposes, for commercial purposes, and for in the mines to these cooling stations.
It's amazing to me, because a lot of people as well, I mean, I never thought about it before I moved here and started learning the history. The process of mining isn't just digging in the ground, and like, the process starts with all these little tiny steps that you never think about, like the ice and, you know, the building of the flume to get the timber in, and like, there's so many little things that if it hadn't worked out, mining wouldn't have been successful.
That's right. I mean, you've also have to think about, in order to have the mining, you have to have a hardware store. You have to have grocery stores.
Right.
You have to have cigar stores.
Yes.
You know, absolutely. You have to have menial workers, which in that case was the Chinese, were in the community and did a lot of the service industry things, from laundry to servantry and that sort of thing. So then you have to have newspapers. You have to have bars, saloons. Yeah. You have to have laundries. And on and on. You have to have a community to support the mining operation, and that's what was here. At its peak, about 22,000 people.
Which blows my mind to think that many people. When I hike around here and it's quiet, I try to imagine the noise, because I just really feel like it was completely noisy compared to what we have.
It was noisy, and the ground vibrated.
Okay,
from the milling operations.
That would be fascinating to feel.
I haven't done one for a long time, but I used to do groups of people when I had the store, and I would take them to a certain location in town, and I would make them lean up against a brick wall of one of the buildings, and make them close their eyes or hold their hands over their eyes, and then I would paint them a verbal picture of what they were seeing and feeling, and it was almost a hypnosis concept, and you'd say, okay, now come back to the 20th century or 21st century or whatever, and you'd get people going, oh no, I'm still experiencing this,
That's really neat.
It's really, people said that's spooky doing that.
I'm sure.
Because they said I could feel the vibrations.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, no, you can't, because they don't exist anymore.
But
they swear they could feel,
brain,
they could hear it. They could hear the whistles from the mines. He said, I heard all that. I mean, as you explained it, and I just paint this verbal picture in quiet tones, right in the middle of town. We get about 6 or 8 people, and we do these tours. You're going to have to do that tour with me one day too. All right.
There's so many tours I need you to do with me.
It's kind of spooky doing that. But
I'm sure.
So this, when Joe was here, we were talking, and all of these different pieces of glazed ceramic, they are the crucibles, and they could only be used once because of contamination. And so he believes that this was probably the trash pile for the different crucibles. But you can see like the different colors in the glazes. There are greens and browns, and I've seen some blue, but there's brown, and yeah, there's blue. So the colors are pretty amazing in the glazes they had back in the early 1900s. So we have two different sets of photos. One are from the late 1800s, and it's the Empire State Mill. And that was down here first. We're gonna have to, when we leave, we'll go up a little ways and take the comparison photos from there. And then I have the photos from Butters, which was built in 1902. So we'll do the Butters comparisons up here first. So I think we need to go that way up on that hill behind that tree. Like right up there.
Okay.
Yeah. I think this is pretty much the spot. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so this pretty much looks like the spot, but you can see, I mean, obviously it was farther away than where we're standing, but there are a couple things to note. Like, so this area here would be back up there, but what Joe was talking about is that, see these lines? That was for the aerial tramway, and that's how they brought the ore down from Virginia City to the top of the mill. I don't know if it'll focus in on that. Is it too glossy? Because I printed it on cardstock too.
Show the tramway and stuff again.
So the lines for the tramway are right there. And the lines came down from Virginia City, and they would unload up here. And that's how the ore would come from Tonopah by train and then be delivered to Virginia City, and then it would be put on this aerial tramway. And this is, you know, the early 1900s.
Wow.
This photo isn't like 1902, it's a little later, but the lines were still there, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna go in and look at this water pipe. You can see another one of the old timbers. I wonder if that's part of the tramway.
Probably.
Metal, thick metal rope. It's just frayed off at the bottom. Here is more wood.
Lizard.
Where?
Right there. Right by the rods.
Oh. Lizard spotting. He's fast. He does not want to be on film.
A lot of old timbers that have fallen down through here. Some graffiti.
As usual.
I'm not climbing down in there.
That's fine, I did. Droppings of some kind. Probably lizard. Well, I don't know if those are lizard. Probably. Lizard poo.
Are those windows or just missing rocks?
I wonder if something was set in there before. Maybe some of the timber. Because it looks purposely cut out, but not missing.
So this is what I'm talking about. These two holes in the wall. I don't know if you can see them. I'll try and get you a little bit closer. There's one, and there's the other. Looks like they're purposely, because there's another one over there too.
Yeah, that's what I thought. They look like they're cut out. Because it doesn't look like anything's missing from there. But you can see on this timber here, there's a bunch of canvas. I mean, look at the fabric. If you just look over, it's layers.
Yeah, it's over there too.
Okay, layers and layers of
Might have been meant
canvas.
to protect something. I don't know. Strange.
Oh yeah.
I think this is probably about as far as I'm gonna go.
Well, I'll go up to the top and finish, and there's a whole bunch more around to that side that is easier to get to. I'll turn off my mic so I'm not interfering with your...
Oh, there's a good shot of Virginia City. So, let me send you back to the front. I gotta fix this. Okay. So way out there, you might be able to Make out the V on the hill. And that city right there is Virginia City. We're very, very close. Virginia City is about 6 miles from Dayton, the town we live in. So we're probably a mile, mile and a half away right now. But Virginia City is a really, really cool town.
You still have a few levels to go up, but...
I'm gonna try and get down out of here without falling down. It's not gonna be the easiest thing in the world. The terrain out here is pretty rocky, a lot of dirt, so it's pretty easy to slide. But if I slide, we'll at least get it on camera, right? Because that's important. Now there are rattlesnakes out here, so we got to be careful of that. There's also cougars, mountain lions, bobcats, wild horses, coyotes, and bear. Although I've never seen a bear here, they do exist. We've had them in Dayton. I haven't seen a mountain lion firsthand here, but when I worked at the Comstock mine, we had a mountain lion sighting about 10 feet away from our security guard shack. In the dark at night, and it was stalking the security guard. Every time he'd move, it would, you know, watch what he was doing and whatnot. And it kept bellowing out at him. So he was, you know, pretty scared. And the job didn't let us have firearms, so he was just asked out. If it would have attacked, there's nothing we could have done. Which is one of the main reasons I don't do security anymore. Most corporations don't understand security, and so they think that anybody can do security with no gun, no way of protecting themselves. Hell, I applied for a job one time at a college, and they basically said, you know, you're basically going to be a janitor. If somebody throws up in the hallway, you know, you might be required to clean that up. And I was like, no, not interested. Not interested. This is kind of neat. Let me show you this. This is what looks to be like a nice flat parking area. For the most part. This is another really cool rock wall. See if I can there we go. This is the second outing with this gimbal, and every time I take it out, I'm less impressed with it. So I think it's going back. The problem is I gotta find one that I like better, and I've been doing a lot of research. The one that I want, nobody has in stock, probably because everybody else wants it too. So I don't know. I've got till the 22nd to get this one shipped back. There's a pretty flower. Let's see if we can get that.
This is, but sure is pretty. This really was massive. You can see here, what I'm on looks kind of like a road because it curves the whole way down. So I'm going to walk down that and meet up with Quarry at the bottom. If I don't see Quarry, I wonder where he is.
This is one of the main walls or structures. A little bit of graffiti that says the devil wears a suit and tie. And then just down the way, somebody wrote, "Carol killed him," which, if you don't know, is a reference to Tiger King. Not a bad spot. It's the history is really interesting. I didn't know that they transported the ore from Tonopah and brought it out here. That's pretty crazy. Tonopah's about 5 hours away, I think, in today's terms. So back then it would have been quite a bit longer of a trip. Although they used railroads, so I mean, it makes sense. And then I didn't know that they moved the ore around Virginia City by air tram, which would be, you know, steel cables everywhere. And that this was the mill that processed all that ore. So that's pretty cool. It's nice that the people that Honey interacts with at her job at the museum in Virginia City. It's nice that they have all this history and are willing to share it with us and with you. Because a lot of the content we provide, we wouldn't be able to provide if she didn't have those contacts and those contacts weren't willing to share the history. Because this area does have a lot of history. The mines in Virginia City funded the building of San Francisco, which became huge in the financial industry in California. So we'll talk more about that later in other videos, because we do have a lot of mining history here that we plan to share eventually. It's just a matter of making the time and getting the context together in order to do it. So hopefully we'll be able to get that done in the next year or two.
All right, so this photo again is from Joe's collection that he gave me to use, and this is of the Empire State Mill that was here around 1890 to 1894. And you can, this is where Butters sat and the remnants are sitting now. And then you can see on the hill there all the different switchbacks up alongside the hill. So that was here first, and there, so the road was a little different, but that you can see a wagon team of horses here. And then, so this will be, this is a newer, or I should say a more recent picture of Butters, because it's kind of broken down. But you can see there was a structure on the other side of the highway and fencing that isn't there now.
Yeah, that's really cool. I would have never expected anything to be on that side of the road.
No, but there were several mills throughout this whole 6 mile. So, but yeah, it's cool that at least Butters is still here.
What year was this? Do we know?
I don't have a date for this photo.
Okay, I'm gonna try and get the actual photo so people can see.
There's a little guy standing on the roof there.
The places we have been going to have been pretty well-known places for people to visit, and like this Butters Cyanide Mill is right along the side of 6 Mile Canyon. So it's very well traveled and known, but when we start going to more secluded off the road places, we won't be sharing locations, just because we want the history to be preserved, and you know, the graffiti like this and the vandalism changes obviously the integrity of the remaining structures. And we're not like, you know, New England or the east southern coast where the historical buildings are older. You know, these are from the 1800s, and for this history it is old, but they aren't as well preserved. And so we will start not disclosing locations as we go along. But thank you for watching this video with us, and there are ways that you can help our channel grow. As always, you can subscribe to the channel, and then once you subscribe, you can like the videos and comment. And we have been reading every comment and the suggestions about how we can improve, and we're really taking those to heart and trying to incorporate to make better videos and more quality content. So thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.